Is information access going dark as bad as the FBI thinks? But first, my name is Steve Smith, this is TQA Weekly, and we're going to be talking about whether your data security should be less or more important than any police agency's ability to use it against you or others. Basically, is data security less important than the FBI's ability to investigate crimes? We're going to go through a few of the ideas that we're going to have to talk about. So first of all, we're going to have to be talking about the idea that your devices are an extension of your memory. If you're a millennial or you think like a millennial, you'll probably know where all the information is, but not actually remember anything. Try to think about a bunch of people's phone numbers that you should actually know but don't, or their addresses, or where they live. You probably don't. Then we're going to have to talk about backdoors. Backdoors, like in your house, a lot of people know they're going to be there. So, is it a good idea to have backdoors? Then we're going to have to think about the fact that we have to deal with illicit hackers, we have to deal with digital warfare, and we also have to deal with weak security practices that are involved when building in backdoors at the same time. Then we're going to have to deal with the idea of encryption. Encryption, though, is something that we need to understand. It safeguards freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is something that a lot of us actually enjoy. It's not free, but it's something that we enjoy. And more importantly, we also have to deal with the fact that the police are not necessarily a good guy. And there's nothing that guarantees that they're actually looking for the whole truth. There's not necessarily a non-biased means of them coming up with who is actually the criminal and prosecuting them. In fact, for the most part, it could be that a lot of their information is flawed and they're trying to use that flawed information to pick a person and then they just stick it to that person. How about we bring this all together? So it's a tricky way of figuring this out. Starting with the backdoor and encryption. So the idea that you can build into math a hole that only one set of actual people can use is utterly ridiculous. You can't change mathematics. Mathematics is mathematics. Anybody who knows anything about math knows that that's not possible. You're basically making your security weak. And what ends up happening is that a lot of police agencies themselves, even though they have a lot of good employees, do have people in there that leak information all the time. So what ends up happening is the illicit community ends up catching wind of backdoors and weak security practices. When they get that, what ends up happening is that they gain access to information that they're not supposed to be able to get on your devices. And when this happens, we normally see it all over the internet, and the companies start losing the stock market, having to issue patches to fix everything so that it doesn't continue actually being leaked. And the thing is that when police agencies lose information, they don't necessarily report the leak of information, or they're not even aware of it. Meaning that any super key to information, as Apple put it, in any hand is dangerous. And its creation itself, the godlike key, is dangerous. So having it in existence is not a good idea whatsoever. Meaning that having a backdoor isn't a good idea. And encrypting the information is very important because it actually safeguards your freedom of speech. So encrypting the telecommunications around the devices is important. But back to the point about your memory. You're using this device as a form of extended memory. Well, if you were in court and it was all in your mind, you couldn't necessarily be compelled to testify against yourself. At least where I am, that is not actually something that is required. In fact, if I'm sitting inside of a courtroom, it's not actually my problem to prove that I'm innocent. It's actually innocent until proven guilty. And that's how the law is supposed to work. And because of the way that the phones and tablets and computers are actually part of our world and extensions of our memory, they should be covered. But since they aren't, having them completely encrypted is the closest that we can come to it. Why? Because unlike the front door where you have a key, where a warrant can ask you for the key itself, combinations, passwords, and even other information in your mind that would allow them to access that isn't something they should be able to compel you to actually have. And for a lot of different places, they can't compel you to give that information. They can only take the device physically, like they could take you and put you in prison, and they would have to figure out how to open this. And because of that, that might actually piss off a lot of them, because a lot of these devices are inaccessible to them. Although it is going to have to be important to say that regardless of how the FBI and the NSA, many other police agencies out there scream bloody murder about how the information going dark is exceptionally bad, it is important to say that in light of everything that they think, there are still police agencies out there that do classical investigation where they actually somehow compel the bad guy to punch in the code into their phone just before they serve him the warrant and grab the phone before he can or she can lock it, allowing them access to the phone without having to break the encryption, without having to have the person testify against themselves or reveal codes or anything. They get the information off the device in a legit manner that is the same thing as being caught red-handed doing something. You shouldn't be forced to give up the information inside of your phones, your tablets, or anything. All of the software and app hardware should be secure, not just against cops, but more specifically against the more likely attacker, the illicit community, who would use your devices as a tool or a weapon for digital warfare. And if you don't actually believe me on that, all you have to do is Google the word botnet. Botnets are some of the most insidious ways of using the internet and using the Internet of Things against other people and companies, and even holding them hostage. It is the new way of causing havoc. And you can imagine that if your power generation systems, if your street light systems, or even the phone networks were susceptible to intrusion and being used as part of a warfare technique for digital warfare, that there would be a serious problem and that it would actually cause a lot of havoc in itself. Imagine needing to call the cops while an illicit group of hackers hacked telecommunications and made all of these useless, and consider that your phone lines probably do not work anymore in your own home. So, is your data security less important than the FBI's ability to investigate crimes? I personally don't think that it's less important. I think it's more important to protect your devices than it is to allow them to investigate crimes, at least in a way that is kind of creepy. And even if they say it's to go against terrorists and pedophiles and all that, who's to say that those groups are not the ones that use the weaknesses in your devices after everything is said and done, and the police lose yet again another godlike key to your devices and your digital life? Like this episode if you like it, dislike it if you didn't, share with those that you think could benefit from this, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, email me at ask@tqaweekly.com or go to my website, tqaweekly.com, for everything else. And if you want to make this show better, go to patreon.com/tqaweekly and become a patron today. Patrons get these episodes 24 to 48 hours in advance of everyone else. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.